coming up.
Oh guys, if we could charge our battery on this electric fence, we would be set too. Imagine that. Just pull out one of the wires out your wheel and just boom, done. Hello Malta. I hate that ringtone. I gotta change that ringtone, guys. Unbelievable. If you don't do this, your battery might not last more than 1 year and it'll be screwed. Why? It's because of battery. When you charge to 100%, that final 1%, or it might even be after it's at 100%, or let's just call it the final 1%. That final 1% is the battery. So that's why I always charge to 100%, but that's not the main reason I do it. The main reason I do it is for safety. Because the higher the voltage you've got, the safer you are against will cut power from the battery, because it wants to protect the battery. It doesn't care about the rudder. You know, you might land under a truck, but at least the battery will be safe. And the next person can pick up your wheel and go for a ride. You might be squashed on the road, but all is good. No, I'm just joking. But I'm not joking. That's exactly how it works. The controller will protect the battery at your expense. Right? It's pretty weird, isn't it? Should it do that? I don't know. But that is what it does, I believe. Almost certain. And if anyone knows otherwise, let me know down in the comments. Don't brake too hard too often if you want to make your battery last longer. And personally, it's not something I wouldn't really apply that to my own riding that much. You know, a little bit. You know, if there was no problem at all, I'd probably be doing it. It's so fun. But let's say you're at 78%, and then you do the same thing. You demand a huge current by leaning forward, of course. And if you do that at 78 volts, well, you're going to be dropping to 74 volts. And it might be the case that at 74 volts, you're in the... Let's begin the topic for today. Look at all that dust. Oh, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's flying away like a big cloud. Today we're going to talk about battery care, battery maintenance and best practices. Not everyone knows everything about batteries, so I thought it'd be good to... Well, I'm not saying I know everything, but I know a lot about batteries, and I'll share my knowledge. Not just because, you know, I did engineering. I graduated as a mechanical engineer. I did very well, so I understand a lot of the topics, but a lot of this knowledge doesn't come from there because that's mechanical. Batteries are more electrical engineering, electronic engineering. So I picked up a lot of knowledge after my degree, just, you know, looking at videos and reading and stuff. What I've learned about lithium batteries in general, there's a lot of different types too. You've got like lithium cobalt, that's the main type. You know, the laptops back in the, like, I don't know, the 90s, 2000s. I'd say around the year 2000, basically every battery you saw inside laptops were lithium cobalt. And that's still what we see a lot of today, I believe. Then you've got like lithium polymer, which is like what you see in a lot of RC cars, because they're like very power dense. They've got a lot of, energy dense. They've got a lot of watt hours per kilogram. So it's good for like remote control airplanes and stuff like that, where you don't want too much weight, but you want plenty of range. And you've got lots of other types. You know, you've got lithium iron phosphate, which is like a safer battery. They don't like catch on fire. I mean, I'm sure they can. It's probably possible, but it's so rare. I think they consider them to be like fireproof, basically. Or not fireproof, but they won't catch on fire. You know, if you overcharge it or even stab them, I think they don't catch fire. So they're called lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO4. But the ones we see in EUCs, I think mostly, and it'll depend, of course, on which model you get. But I think they're mostly lithium cobalt, from what I understand. Lithium cobalt. Cobalt is a metal. And I think, yeah, the cobalt is used as the anode or the cathode or something, but that doesn't matter. What I'm going to talk about in this episode is best practices for looking after the battery. And there's quite a few things actually to go over. And we might see a kangaroo today, guys. This is the same place. See? And I'm on pretty much a full charge on my Kingston. But the first thing I want to talk about is how to best prolong the life of your battery, the longevity. And to do that, well, first of all, most importantly, you don't want to discharge it too much. You don't want to go below like 20% if you can help it. You know, if you do it once or twice or a few times, it doesn't really matter. But if you do it consistently, it will have a decent effect, fairly big effect on it'll shorten the life of your battery. So number one, don't discharge too much. So if you can help it, charge when you get to 50%. That's what I do most of the time. Sometimes I go down to like 25%, but I try not to go any further than that. And I'm talking real percent, by the way. Like most of the EUCs you get will give you like an optimistic percent, but use like EUC World or use Wheel Log and put it on real percent. You got like an option there, and that's the percent I'm talking about, not the optimistic one. So yeah, you can go fairly low, but don't go below 25. That's the point you want to kind of hover around if you're gonna do it consistently. But like I said, if you do it once or twice, you can go down to 1% even, and it won't matter that much. But just don't do it often. All right. Number two, and this is not something I do, by the way, but if you can do this, just charge up to 80, 90% and don't go to 100%. When you charge back up, don't go to 100%, because that, again, will prolong the life of your battery quite a lot, actually. If you can only ever charge to 80%, and there's a caveat with that, I'll explain that later. If you only ever charge to 80%, you could, according to the data sheets, you could double the longevity of your battery. So let's say they rate your wheel at 1,000 cycles. So you can fully discharge and fully charge 1,000 times before your battery falls below some threshold, like say 70% of its capacity. It'll still work after that, but it'll be significantly degraded. And if you can do it, if you don't charge to 100%, if you just charge to 80% and don't charge below 25%, you can get 2,000 cycles out of it. So you double it. And think about that for a second. How long does it take you to charge 1,000 times? Well, if you ride your wheel every single day from full to empty, then that takes 3 years to do 1,000 cycles. 3 years. But no one does that much riding, I don't think, unless you've only got one wheel and like a really long trip to work or something. So really it's going to be more like 6 years. But if you do what I said, you could double that up to 12 years. So there you get an idea of how long these batteries can last. And even after that, like I said, it will still work. You just have less range. So you could get like 20 years out of these things. They're pretty nuts. Remember I was mentioning the laptops earlier? The laptops from like the 90s or like around year 2000. A lot of those laptops are still around. And if you salvage the battery, you just pull out the batteries out of them. They've got cells. They're 18650 cells. These like round batteries. It's like a cylinder. Each laptop has around 6 of those in there, or some have 9 if they're the big laptops. A lot of those batteries still work very well. Like if you pull apart one of those batteries from like 20 years ago, you'll find that most of those cells are good. Some will be bad. You'll probably get like, out of a 6-pack, you'll get say 4 good cells and 2 bad ones on average. And the 4 good cells that you find in there are very, like, they work perfectly for like a flashlight or whatever. They're probably too degraded to put back into like a vehicle, you know, like an EUC or something, or in a car, of course. They need more power. Like they need to be able to drain at high rates, and these old batteries have degraded too much for that. So they've got a lot of voltage sag at high amps. So they're not good for those applications anymore, but they're perfect for flashlights and anything else like that. Anything, basically anything that's not driving a load, you know, like a heavy load like that, you know, it's just low amps. So yeah, these batteries are pretty amazing when you think about it. But let's move on to point 3. So I'll repeat that. Point 1 is don't discharge too low, and point 2 is don't charge too high. But the caveat with that is, we'll call that point 3, is that every now and then you want to charge to 100%. And this is extremely important. If you don't do this, you can ruin your battery in a few months, or like let's say 1 year. If you don't do this, your battery might not last more than 1 year and it'll be screwed. Why? It's because of balancing. When you charge to 100%, that final 1%, or it might even be after it's at 100%, or let's just call it the final 1%. That final 1% is the balancing, and that's where it'll make sure each cell has the same voltage. Because you've got these each series of cells. You've got like, let's say a bunch of series. In this case, like it's 84 volts, an 84 volt series of cells, right? And they're 4.2 volts at full charge. So that means there's 20 in series. So you got 20 cells like stacked up like that, you know, end to end. And that 84 volt series consists of 4.2 volt cells, right? So you want each of those series to be equal, and you want each cell within those series to be equal to each other, right? That's the balancing. If they're out of balance, you're going to have issues like with you have power like draining from one cell to the other and stuff like that. You can have over voltage issues where you're charging and you think you're not at full charge because some cells are behind, and then you're going to push other cells beyond their limit to get their full charge, because the charger just reads a final voltage, right? 84 volts is full charge. In this, you know, a lot of our wheels are 100 volts now, but the Kingsong 16X is 84. And that's when it's at full, that's 100%, is at 84 volts. So that's why every now and then you want to charge to 100%. It's super important. And how often, you might ask? I would say once a month at a minimum. I do it every like week, to be honest. No, sorry. I always charge to 100%. Always. I never just like leave it at 90 or 80, even though I know that can make the battery last longer. I never do it. Why? Because, especially on this wheel here, it just doesn't have enough range. If you charge to 100%, you've got more range. If you only charge to 80, you've lost 20% of your range. More than 20, because like I said, I don't like going below 25%, right? Let's say 50% even. I don't like going below 50%. So if I've only got 50% of that battery and I only charge to 80%, then I've only got 30% left. So I've lost like half my range. So that's why I always charge to 100%, but that's not the main reason I do it. The main reason I do it is for safety. Because the higher the voltage you've got, the safer you are against cutouts, basically. It's exactly how it works. There's no two ways about it. The lower your voltage gets, the more prone you are to a cutout. The easier it will cut out. Because the way these things cut out, I believe the most common cause of a cutout is not because of the motor giving up or the controller, It's the batteries. Or it might be the controller trying to protect the batteries. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because when you demand a load from these batteries, right? When you demand amps, you demand power, then you have a voltage sag. So let's say you're at full charge, 84 volts, and then you demand this huge load. It's going to get a voltage sag, let's say to 83 volts, let's say, right? And that's just how it works, and that's fine. Going down to 83 volts, no problem. But let's say you're already super low. Let's say the voltage sag is more like 4 volts. I don't know if it is, but let's just say. So you're going from 84 to 80 volts. Now let's say you're like at almost empty. I don't know what empty is. Let's say it's 78%. I don't know if it is. Let's say you're at 78%, and then you do the same thing. You demand a huge current by leaning forward, of course. And if you do that at 78 volts, well, you're going to be dropping to 74 volts. And it might be the case that at 74 volts, you're in the danger zone. And this is according to the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer of these cells says, don't go below, let's say I think it's like 2.7 volts per cell is the usual like cutoff. So that would actually be what, 54 volts if you've got 20 in series. So yeah, I was kind of off in my estimates there, but let's just say 54 volts is the bare minimum. You can't go below. And if you go below that, the controller will cut power from the battery, because it wants to protect the battery. It doesn't care about the rudder. You know, you might land under a truck, but at least the battery will be safe. And the next person can pick up your wheel and go for a ride. You might be squashed on the road, but all is good. No, I'm just joking. But I'm not joking. That's exactly how it works. The controller will protect the battery at your expense. Right? It's pretty weird, isn't it? Should it do that? I don't know. But that is what it does, I believe. Almost certain. And if anyone knows otherwise, let me know down in the comments, because I'm almost certain, but I'm not sure. It might be the case that some wheels don't do this, but I'm sure some do. I'm sure of it, because just from what I've read. Alright, so yeah, you don't want to, everyone knows this too, you don't want to push a wheel when it's low on battery. But that's why I personally always charge to 100%, because it's the safest way to go. So what's the next point? I know I've got a couple more points, but I can't remember them, guys. Let me think. Alright, man, I didn't get any thinking done. I thought that would help me think. There's got to be another point. So we've gone 3. Well, if you guys know any other points, let me know as well. But I'll still try and think of one. Oh yeah, big one. And something that probably very few people would have ever thought of. But it's to do with the regeneration. These wheels, when you brake, they pump power back into the battery, right? It's called regen. That's how your braking force gets delivered, is through magnetic force. And through magnetic force, you actually generate a current. That's called, I can't remember, it's some scientific law, but basically if you've got a charged particle accelerating over a magnetic field, it induces a current. I believe that's it. Anyway, it's something like that. And basically you turn mechanical energy into electrical energy and you pump it back into the battery. But the thing to realize about that process is it happens at very high amps. It's like way more than what your charger does. You know, your brick that you plug into the wall. Usually they're around like 3 to 5 amps, even up to 10 amps for the super fast chargers. But when you brake hard, when you're actually moving along and you brake hard, you can deliver way more power than that back into the wheel. I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing probably 20 amps at least. Maybe more. Well, think about it. Let's take an educated guess here. When you accelerate hard, for example, well, this wheel here is rated at 2200 watts. Nominal though, that's nominal. So it can sustain 2200 watts for like as long as it can, as long as it wants, until the battery's gone. But peak is going to be a lot higher than that. Let's say it's 5000 watts. That's a pretty like conservative estimate. It could probably do more than that, but let's say 5000 watts. Let's just assume it's 100 volts to make the math simple. So how many amps do you need at 100 volts to generate 5000 watts? You need 50, right? Volts times amps equals watts. And so you need 50 amps, right? To take off hard, you know, like lean forward hard, like Coogee rolls. And I'm assuming when you brake hard, it's going to be comparable. It's going to be about the same, about 50 amps. So there you go, 50 amps is what you can pump back into your wheel when you brake. So way more than your wall charger. You know, your wall charger might only be 2 amps. I think the Kingsong one, the standard one you get is like 2 amps. So 50 is like way more, you know, you're like 25 times over. All right, so why am I saying this? It's so you realize that when you brake, actually before I say that, you got to realize that the faster you charge your battery up, the less it's going to last, right? If you can always charge it slow, your battery will last longer, partly because it heats up less during charging, right? So for example, if you have a 10 amp super fast charger and you always use that, you're not going to get as much life out of your battery compared to if you had used a 2 amp charger, let's say, and charged it overnight every time, right? Your 2 amp charger is going to give you more life, right? In the long run, you're going to get more cycles. So if you're charging at 50 amps, right, when you're braking, and you can't help this sometimes, you got to brake hard sometimes, you're actually stressing out your battery quite a lot, right? Not too much, because it's only happening like momentarily, you know. You're not braking constantly, unless you're going down like Mount Everest or something and you're just constantly braking. But, you know, usual case scenario, it's only for a second or two, so it doesn't matter much. But depending on how you ride, you might do that a lot, and that's something I've noticed. I'm like that quite a lot, actually. I really enjoy braking and accelerating. You know, I've talked about how that feeling, you get that feeling of balance, like it's a nice feeling. Accelerating on an EUC and braking is super comfortable because of the way you accelerate through balance. It's you're in perpetual balance with the G-forces, basically, so you don't feel like any stress on, for example, on a motorbike, when you're trying to take off hard, you got to hold the handlebars tight, don't you? Or else your ass is basically taking all the force, right? You're sitting on that seat and your ass has to take that G-force. But on an EUC, because you have to lean first, then you don't feel that G-force. It's like being in a bus. You know when you're in a bus and it takes off, and if you lean perfectly, you don't even have to hold on to anything. That's how it's like on an EUC all the time, by default, because it only accelerates as much as you lean. It only brakes as much as you lean back. So it's a nice feeling, and it's tempting to always be, you know, taking off hard and braking hard, and it's super fun, no doubt, but it stresses out the battery. If you can ride in a manner where you're never braking, like if all your rides were just a straight run and you never had to slow down until the end, then your battery would last super long. You know, I don't know how much longer, but it would make a fairly decent difference. Maybe double, I don't know guys, I don't know, but it would be significant, no doubt. And like I said before though, if you did all these other things right, you could get 10, 15 years out of your battery. So then if you're doing this as well, you probably get even more, 20, 25, who knows how many years. It'll probably outlast you. So really there's no need to do all this. You don't want to take all the fun out of your EUC just to make your battery last 25 years. Like, what are you going to be doing in 25 years? Are you still going to be, you know, like just taking it easy on that same wheel? I doubt it. There's going to be so many new wheels out by then. It'll probably be running on freaking, who knows, corn juice or something. And that actually reminds me of something interesting. I saw a bike, an e-bike that runs on hydrogen fuel. It's electric though. So you've just got the hydrogen fuel to generate the electricity, right? So instead of charging, you just fill up. How awesome would that be, guys? So when your EUC, right, imagine if you just had gas stations, you could just bring your EUC and just fill up the tank, but it's still electric, right? So it's the same thing, it's just got a 1 minute charge instead of like a, you know, 5-hour charge. Not even like 30 seconds, you know, how much, I doubt you'd even need much, you know, probably like 10 seconds and you're done. That would be, oh, that would be awesome, guys. And like, it would bring the weight down too. So you don't need this huge battery. You could have tremendous range and very lightweight wheels. Imagine a Kingsong like this. It'd probably have a higher top speed too, because you could have more power in there, right? For the same weight. So you could have a Kingsong that's got the performance of the Sherman and the range of the Sherman, even more range than the Sherman. That would be a dream. That would be a dream, guys. And just so you know, I'm still not sick of EUCs. I'm still not bored of them. I've been riding for like basically 2 years now. About a year and a half. Let me think. A year and 5 months, I think, exactly. And I'm still not sick of it, not one bit. Like, it's still awesome. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, oh yeah, one more point. If we can bring another point about the battery up, that would be good. Look, I'll come up here. Put my stuff down there. And you got the reservoir just here. Oh guys, if we could charge our battery on this electric fence, we would be set too. Imagine that. Just pull out one of the wires out your wheel and just bloom, done. Hello Malta. I hate that ringtone. I gotta change that ringtone, guys. Unbelievable. Alright, so next point. So yeah, let me just go over that last point again. So basically, don't brake too hard too often if you want to make your battery last longer. And personally, it's not something I wouldn't really apply that to my own riding that much. You know, a little bit. You know, if there was no problem at all, I'd probably be doing more braking, more accelerating, because it's so fun. But I still do quite a lot. You know, like, even though I know it's not the best thing for the battery, I still do quite a lot because, like I said, I don't need this battery to last freaking, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. I don't need it. I doubt it. Maybe I will need it. Maybe I'll be that poor that I will, but I'm hoping I won't. And yeah, almost forgot all my stuff down there. And what I was gonna say, forgot. Oh, can you see the dragonfly? I wonder if you can see that. Look at that, look at that. It's a bit far away. Yeah, so don't do that too often. What's the next point? There's another point, maybe. Maybe not.